Hi guys, so today is the big lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, and I wanted to jump on and share some thoughts on lunar eclipses and working magic during them and the significance of all of that. So I'm sure many of you have seen, on the internet where people have very, very strong opinions on whether magic and spell work and intention setting, manifesting, whatever you call it, can be done during an eclipse, if it shouldn't be done, if it's dangerous, if it's safe. So I'm going to touch on a couple of those topics. But in order to get to that first, if just in case you don't have this, a little bit of background on how people usually use the planetary bodies in order to boost their spell work. So when we're talking about the moon and lunar magic, people frequently will begin spell work to manifest something during a new moon. So new moons are excellent for new beginnings, for releasing things, for beginning like long and complicated spell work, like major life changes. And generally the thought is that if you begin your magic on the new moon, by the time the full moon manifests in around 21 days, which is a very significant number in a lot of spiritual traditions, that you will begin to see results during that time. So about 21 days later when the moon is full, because your intention, you're planting the seed at the new, and it grows and grows and grows until we get to the full, and that's when we begin to see the results of our work. So at the full moon, generally, it is a culmination of everything that has led up to it. Okay, so as the moon is growing and waxing, things begin to happen and you begin to see more materialization of the intention that you put out into the universe. So when we do spell work on the full moon, it's kind of about bringing things to fruition. I personally like to do kind of intention work more closer to the new moon. And I like to use the full moon for things having to do with intuition, with spiritual work, divination, energy work, astral projection, dream magic, and things where the moon at its strongest, I guess, point is able to illuminate our intuition and our psyches and everything. Obviously, new moons are also excellent for cleansings and releasing. When folks use the sun to empower their spell work, generally we're talking about workings for health, for vitality, for success, for prosperity, and for boosting the mood. And the sun really does have a huge boost, and it's not as used by a lot of people, I guess, because moon magic is more popular, but solar magic is very, very potent. And I just enjoy it because it tends to bring a very nice kind of happy mood boosting energy right into your life. So now we have, the moon and the sun colliding in a way, right? The earth is blocking the reflection of the light of the sun reflecting against the moon, because the moon really doesn't have its own light. The sun is shining on it, and that is the reflection that we see. So when that's blocked, we kind of, don't see anything. So this moon is called a blood flower moon. And the background on that, a lot of the terms like worm moon, strawberry moon, flower moon, they come from farming almanacs and pretty much are related to the seasonal occurrence at the time. So the flower moon just means that during this time, there's an abundance usually of flowers in bloom and ready to be harvested, and it just speaks of like abundance and fertility and like bounty and all the things that we kind of start to see during summer, where there's life, right? There's blossoming everywhere. And the blood moon refers to the color that happens during an eclipse. So we get that kind of like hazy red orangey glow. And so that's what that means. It totally sounds a lot creepier than it actually is. So now, back to trying to manifest or do spell work during an eclipse. Basically, if you've only had exposure to witchcraft, on the internet, you're gonna immediately see this is horrible, you shouldn't do it, it's dangerous. And then you see other groups of people, usually more elder or witches, are just kind of like, you do what you have to do, right? When you have to do it, but you have to know what you're doing. And that is the most important part. So like once you know all of the energies at play during an eclipse, the question is, do you want to still try and do your spell work during this time when you pretty much have any time possible to do it? Now, for people that are used to harnessing the energy of the moon or the sun in order to do their spell work, during an eclipse, both energies are completely off, which means that they're unpredictable. Eclipses bring things out of the blue. They bring things to light that we didn't know about. So when we're talking about a lunar eclipse, generally that can bring change, that can bring information to light that we didn't know. It can bring up emotions maybe we weren't aware of with people in our lives or even ourselves. It can bring up a lot of things. So think weird energies, kind of weird and unpredictable energies being stirred up. We don't really know how this is going to manifest, right? Like with each of us. So it's kind of risky. If you're a person that likes to have a very clear picture of how your spell work is going to manifest, trying to do work during an eclipse is probably not for you, because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the best things that you can really do during an eclipse are workings for release, meaning that you can manifest something or think about something that you would like to be eclipsed, meaning replace one thing with another. Like let's say you're working a job that you really hate, and so your everyday is kind of this like monotonous drudgery kind of vibe. It's all in the wording. So instead of saying I'm gonna manifest a new job, right, during the eclipse, what you would be focusing on is releasing the feeling of possibly guilt or obligation that keeps you tied to this situation, and releasing, right, feelings of powerlessness in regards to your situation. You would also be releasing the perfectly pictured outcome of possibly what you might be trying to manifest. Because the thing is, and this is important in all spell work, is that we can't always control the way that the things we try to manifest themselves. That's because our minds are a lot smaller than the universe and the celestial bodies that we petition, and even our own inner power and higher self. So we're not always conscious of our innermost desires and stuff, and that really can block your magic. So let's go back to the job analogy. If you're just focusing and going on and on about this job and all of this that you really don't like and is making you unhappy, and you have like a specific picture in your mind of what would make you happy, okay? But you're wrong. The universe is like, you may think that, this 6-figure CEO, position is what is gonna finally fulfill you, a big title, lots of money. But what it doesn't know is that like your higher purpose might actually be to help people or to connect more with your relationships and family members in this lifetime. So where you might need a little bit more personal time in your own life, that job would completely eliminate that for you, thus blocking your soul's purpose. So this is why eclipses are cool in a sense, because you don't have control. And sometimes that's good, because when we put a very specific outcome into our spell work, we totally limit ourselves to that specific outcome. And if that specific outcome is impossible, not in our best interest, if we have, deities, spirits, guardian angels, Orisha, whatever, guiding us, then those energies are also going to intervene like, no, this is really cute that you had this idea, but we're not doing that because you're going to hate it. And you can be mad now, just like a parent. You can be mad, but later you'll thank me for not making this happen for you. And so if we approach our eclipse magic in the same way, with the same attitude of like, we're gonna let go of any expectation of how this is gonna go. We're just gonna let go and focus on the feelings that we'd like to get rid of and have them replaced by something else and something better. And we don't necessarily have to determine what that is exactly, because most of the time we don't even know. We just know we want something else, something different. We don't have to know either exactly what it is, so we can just let that go too. And that's, that's my take on how to do magic during an eclipse. As long as you have zero expectations and you're only focusing on releasing something and letting something go, or really just replacing maybe one feeling or one mood with another. Like if you know that you've been a little down, and you can release those feelings and try to visualize yourself in a more happy and positive place, but kind of without all those little details on how you're going to get there, then you definitely will achieve more success with your workings during an eclipse. The other thing that's really beneficial to do there during an eclipse, in many other spiritual traditions, is cleansing magic. I don't recommend, making things like moon water and charging your crystals during an eclipse, because again, crystals are very sensitive to energy, and the energies are very, very erratic and unpredictable during this time. So if you have crystals set with like a specific intention, or you created crystal grids and altars for specific intentions, and you put these into like, the eclipse atmosphere, it's gonna like kind of reset possibly, and alter those energies and intentions a little bit. But you absolutely can do spiritual cleansings in your house, prior to and after the eclipse. Anything having to do with water is very lunar, so obviously baths and cleansing your floors, from back to front with waters and perfumes and herbs and whatever you happen to like in that avenue is also super beneficial. Because we're talking about refreshing, and because the eclipses can be unpredictable, we might need a little reset, or just a little extra protection work during that time. So protection work is actually really good, but only in terms of protecting yourself against randomness surrounding the eclipse. Protection work in general is probably best left for another time. But if we're talking about, if you see that personally this eclipse, because of your sun sign or your moon sign, or just your chart, is going to affect you in a very deep way, you might want to reinforce yourself a little bit, but that's about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and have a wonderful eclipse. Do your magic, don't do your magic, do whatever you want. Have a good one.